We thought we'd check in with a couple of former candidates here, including, let's kick it off with David Orchard, who's with us tonight from Saskatoon. Thanks for being here, David.
You're welcome.
I want to start with your feelings about the party, because obviously they are mixed based on your current legal position about it. So let's start there in terms of how you think the party is standing today in your view.
Well, as you know, I think the party was formed in an undemocratic way, and it was really, I always said that it was a takeover of the Progressive Conservative Party by the Canadian Alliance, and most Progressive Conservatives had expressed themselves as being opposed to that for the last number of years. They've passed resolutions to that effect. We even put it in our Constitution that we wouldn't merge with the Canadian Alliance. And I, along with a group of other Progressive Conservatives, went to court to save the name Progressive Conservative and hang on to the rights of those of us who didn't want to be taken over by the Canadian Alliance.
David, given your position and your stance about the merger of the parties, is there a candidate amongst the three leadership candidates currently that you feel, you know, sort of best embraces the policies of the old Progressive Conservative Party?
Well, I don't really see it. You know, I stood for the values I think that the Progressive Conservative Party stood for many years in terms of protection of our sovereignty as a nation, protection of our environment, looking after the farmers in Western Canada, fishermen in Eastern Canada, all of these things, managing our resources. The new strain, if I can put it that way, seems to be to give as much of that away as quickly as possible, and I've seen all the leadership candidates say they think we should be in Iraq supporting the Americans. We should have our troops there. We should privatize more of our industries. I don't think most Canadians want to go down that direction. In fact, I saw a poll that said 77% of Canadians don't think we should be in Iraq or part of that war. So I don't really share the views of any of those candidates on key issues. On some issues, certainly there's agreement, but on the key issues, the fundamental issues of where Canada should go, I think we should be forging our own way in the world, and we should be protecting Canadian citizens and not simply giving our resources and our industries over into foreign hands.
I guess I want to sort of dwell on your position in terms of the actual formation of the party, because I'm going to assume that you think that there should be a different government than the Liberal government. I'm going to assume that you think that there should be a change in power in Ottawa, and I'm wondering whether you don't feel that your stance here undermines that possibility.
Well, I think this new formation of the party undermines that possibility, because look where Peter MacKay would be now. If we hadn't had this merger, we would have had Stephen Harper, who Paul Martin, I think, could have defeated handily. We would have, if Peter MacKay would have stuck to the deal that he'd made with me and hung on to the Progressive Conservative Party, he would be the Prime Minister in waiting in the House of Commons today. He would look clean, he would look straight, and now look what we've got. We don't even have a Progressive Conservative Party anymore. Peter MacKay is off the stage in the sense that it looks like Mr. Harper will be leading the party. It'll be seen as a takeover by the Alliance, and you know, that was one of the reasons I stood opposed to it, but also because of the undemocratic way in which it was done. And we are appealing our court ruling. The court ruled against us, but we're going to the Court of Appeal to ask whether the rights of the existing Progressive Conservative Party members are not something that should be protected, and so our case will be heard at the end of April at the Court of Appeal.
But David, on this issue of the appeal, hasn't the train really left the station here? I mean, the parties have merged. They're having a leadership selection this weekend on a combined basis. How are you going to sort of retread that lost ground?
Well, I don't think the train has left the station for a number of reasons. One, this new party, this new Conservative Party, is holding $70,000 of my funds, the donations that were made to my campaign. They're refusing to hand them back to me, even though that they were bound by the rules of our leadership race to give them back within 48 hours. And they're still holding my deposit that I posted when I ran for for the leadership. So the train certainly hasn't left the station for the leaders of this new Conservative Party. But I think, judging from the number of telephone calls I get from progressive Conservatives from across the country, there are many, many moderate progressive Conservatives that say that we don't want to go in this direction. We're not going to go out to the far right, to Harper's position of essentially having the American flag flying over the country, or his position on social issues, or his position on anything else, for that matter. Most progressive Conservatives want to see a moderate, mainstream alternative to the Liberals, and that's what historically the Progressive Conservative Party has been. It's the only other party that ever defeated the Liberals in this country. By throwing that away and moving off to Stephen Harper's version of things, which isn't much different than Stockwell Day's version, and we saw what happened to Stockwell Day in the last election.
Well, I want to ask you, I mean, there are probably many people out there who watched the former PC leadership convention, who thought that McKay may have did some double dealing, but nevertheless, the party seems to have moved away from David Orchard, in the sense that you just said that none of the three candidates represent your views. So where does David Orchard go now? Is it a new Conservative Party that you're looking for? Is it the NDP? Is it the Liberals? What's your political future?
Well, I've just been taking calls from all of the above that you mentioned, but I haven't made any decision about my future. But if I can pick up on this party moving away from David Orchard, it may be that if they do that, they might find themselves moving away from most Canadian voters. And if they do that, they might run into the same problem they ran into in the last election when the Alliance couldn't make that breakthrough in Quebec. They didn't make a breakthrough in Ontario. They didn't get anywhere in Atlantic Canada. I think the views that I represent in terms of protection of our sovereignty, our environment, on all of these issues, I think they're maybe views that many Canadians stand for. I farm here in Western Canada. I don't see anyone coming out with solutions for the BSE crisis, the forestry crisis in British Columbia, the fishery crisis. I don't see these issues being tackled, and I think that's where most Canadians are.
I guess we will find out the answer to that fairly soon. We appreciate you being here, David.
It's a pleasure.
David Orchard.